Hi guys, welcome to the new Celphos clan analysis. Um, this is a new Archer clan, and I'm gonna go through the skills and whatever other um, synergies I might think of. So let's go through it. So the first skill is the Aqua Blast. Throws aqua mines at two random enemies, which explodes on impact and deals damage equal to 480% of the caster's strength. Enemies who are affected in the explosion will have their skill damage reduced by 30%. All allies' attacks against the affected enemies in the explosion have an 80% chance to hit. So this is a damage dealing skill. Um, it also has a debuff for the two random enemies. It doesn't specify if the damage affects only those two random enemies or any other heroes that are nearby. So let's assume it's only hitting the two random enemies. Also, it doesn't specify if the skill damage uh, debuff reduction is only applied to the next fire of that skill, or if it's for the entire duration of the fight. All allies attacks against the affected enemies in the explosion have an 80% chance to hit. So it also increases the chance of damage being dealt to those two enemies by 80%. Next up, we have the ultimate, which is Despairing Cascade. Throws a cluster of echo mines at the enemy's locations, which will explode in 0.5 seconds after landing. Each explosion deals damage equal to 630% of the caster's strength to all nearby targets and inflicts stun for 1.5 seconds. So, this is an area of effect skill. See, this time it specifies to all nearby targets, right? Um, it also has a delay of 0.5 seconds, which in a fight is likely to throw enemies out of that area if you're using someone like the male simmer, which pushes enemies away. Um, also inflicts a stun for 1.5 seconds, which is neglectable to say the least. Um, so it's basically a damage, a limited area of effect damage dealing skill. And also the last one, the passive hair trigger. Normal attacks have an 80% chance to throw an additional aqua mine, which attaches to the current target for 5 seconds. As long as it's attached, the target using an active skill will trigger the explosion, draining 200 energy from the target. So each time an enemy is using an active skill and they have a mine attached, that mine will drain 200 energy from that target. So this is a energy control skill, um, limited to 200 energy, um, and it's an 80% chance. So you might get that mine attached or not. The good thing is that it's on normal attacks. So each time this hero hits, it has an 80% chance to throw an aqua mine, right? So it does not apply to the active skills, only to normal attacks. 80% is a lot. So if, for example, you have um, a trait that increases the attack speed, right? Then, like the one from Nutrivian, from Travain, sorry, then you get a high chance of these actually attaching. It doesn't say that it has a limit of number of how many mines can be attached. So if, for example, assuming It has no limit. If you're attacking the same enemy hero, right? Um, and during the first 3 seconds you attack it 5 times, then there's an 80% chance that you will have 5 mines attached, right? Um, and once the enemy hero deals triggers an active skill, then you'll have 5 times 20 200 energy, and then you'll have a decrease of 1000 energy from the target, right? So this is just theory crafting. I haven't tested these, but this is what the skills say. So all in all, this hero is a damage dealer with some energy control, and also uh, a crowd control that can be ignored, right? By 1.5 seconds is nothing. However, the stun might prove handy if the enemy is in the process of dealing an ultimate skill, for example, um, that takes a while to deploy, like Bloodstorm, for example. From the time Bloodstorm skill is executed, it takes a few milliseconds, or I don't know, half a second to actually deal the damage. So this is the male. Now moving on to the female Celphos. Let's look at the skills. So the first active skill throws echo mines at 3 random enemies, paralyzing the targets for 2 seconds, dealing damage to them equal to 300% of the caster's strength, right? So this skill affects 3 random enemies. It paralyzes them for 2 seconds, dealing damage. Okay, so it deals 300% damage, 300% of the caster's strength damage, and it paralyzes them for 2 seconds. We have 3 random enemies. Exalting Tune. So this is the ultimate. Blows the conch aloud, increasing all allies' hit rate by 30% and strength by 120% for 6 seconds. The ultimate attacks also inflict weaken to the targeted enemies for 3 seconds, during which the target's damage dealt is reduced by 20%, right? So this affects all allies. It increases the strength by 120% for 6 seconds, which is a lot. It's compared to the female Lionstone's ultimate skill. Obviously, the buff is not that high when compared to the Lionstone. However, it also increases the hit rate by 30%. Let's just look at the female Lionstone real quick and do a comparison between the two. Okay, so the female Limestone, as you can see, increases the ally strength by 393% and the attack speed by 30% for 5 seconds. So the duration is 1 second smaller. However, the strength buff is a lot higher. And it also increases attack speed, while the female Celphos' ultimate increases the hit rate by 30%, right? The ultimate attack also inflicts weaken to the targeted enemies for 3 seconds. It doesn't say which are the targeted enemies, if it targets all enemies, or how this applies. To be specific, increases all allies hit rate, but the targeted enemies doesn't mention who these are, if it's the entire enemy team or not. So weaken for 3 seconds, during which the target's damage dealt is reduced by 20%. So this is a debuff to the damage, so not the strength, the damage. So the actual damage dealt is reduced by 20% for 3 seconds. Obscuring Ink Burst, this is the passive. Upon taking an attack, The caster becomes immune to the damage and effect, spraying ink towards the attacker. The ink deals damage to the target and nearby enemies equal to 460% of the caster's strength and inflicts blind for 3 seconds. Blinded targets have their hit rate reduced by 20% and it has a 6 seconds cooldown. So, upon taking an attack, the caster becomes immune to the damage and effect. So if someone attacks the female Celphos, she becomes immune to the damage and effect. So not only the damage, if for example this triggers while she's being hit by an ultimate skill that has debuffs or something else, she's also immune to the effect. Spraying ink. Okay, the ink deals damage to the target and nearby enemies equal to 460% of the caster's strength, right? So not only the attacker, but also nearby enemies. And inflicts blind for 3 seconds. Blinded targets have their hit rate reduced by 20%. Okay, so if someone attacks the Celphos, the female Celphos, and this skill is cooled down and triggers, then she's immune to the damage and effect. She attacks the attacker for 460% damage, 460% strength damage, and blinds the attacker and nearby enemies for 3 seconds, during which time they have their hit rate reduced by 20%. So this is similar to the effect of the ultimate from the parade male, right? The one with the bombs. That says whoever's inside that mist has their hit rate reduced. Right? Okay, so overall, this hero is a mix between a damage dealer, a buffer, and a debuffer, right? So it's kind of a weird mixed breed. Right? She is an archer, deals, well, limited damage, so 300% and 460% is not that much. But she also buffs the entire team and debuffs the enemy team if this applies to everyone. And also it debuffs the damage of the enemy team and the hit rate for certain enemies, right? So this is the female. The female is an interesting mix. It'll be interesting to see her in action. Now, if you would ask me between these two, which I would choose, this is a hard thing to say, because obviously the male is a damage dealer, so the ultimate deals damage 630% damage, while the active skill has 480% of the strength to 2 random enemies, and this to an area of effect. So this might be interesting if you pair it with a character that has crowd control, like the female Devala, for example, or even the male Simir, agreeing that the Simir does not push everyone out of the way, which might happen. And also crowd control, energy control, sorry. So this is a damage dealer with energy control, the male, while the female is a buffer, a debuffer with some damage. Right, so as far as what skills I would use for these, obviously the male needs strength, as much strength as possible. So obviously brutal. You will want to go with focused for quicker energy build, and also I would say agile, because the normal attacks need to trigger as fast as possible, so it would have to attack as quickly as possible. So agile seems like a good synergy here. Focused for the first and secondary skill, brutal for strength, and if you want survivability, obviously go with energetic or anything else. Let's The skill that deals plus 20% overall damage could be interesting here. Don't remember the name of it. Um, so yeah, this is for the male. For the female, however, um, the female has a 6-second cooldown on her passive, so she's not affected by agile, for example. You might want focus for this one too, because you would want the ultimate to trigger as quickly as possible, right, for the buff and debuff. Um, 3 random enemies paralyzing the targets for 2 seconds. Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily go with strength on this one, because the ultimate is not affected by anything, like any skill, right? She just buffs um, the allied team and the enemy team based on nothing. These are fixed percentages. The passive is damage based on strength, and the active also. So if you want to go with damage dealing for this one too, then go with strength. She buffs herself, her strength by 120%. So yeah, strength might be an option here. If you add the buff to the damage, so let's say for example that this one has variable 450k strength. If you add brutal to it, it would increase that to around maybe level 22. Would be, I don't know, 40%, I guess. So it would be around 800 and sorry, about 650k or somewhere around that area. And then apply this buff 120%. That would be a nice strength buff. Yeah, so buff strength could go well for this one too. So yeah, focused would be interesting. Brutal would be interesting. And the other ones are up for grabs. So yeah, this is it for Celphos. Let me know if you found this interesting, right? Peace out.